justice for all.
All right. Our first call to the public. Larry, Tony, looks like you're it. Do you have anything to say to public safety and courts? All right. Our first item tonight on the agenda is a presentation. I've invited Amy Dolinke from Close. Is that right? Dolinke? From Michigan Association of Counties. I serve on the Judiciary Committee for Michigan Association of Counties, and they have brought on staff a person with expertise to provide technical assistance for counties on how to spend their opioid settlement dollars. And her presentation had really good information in it, and so I thought it would be helpful to answer some questions, to give us some guidance as we move forward. And so, Amy, if you would come and share with us what you have. I asked her, she had a PowerPoint put together, but I told her it'd probably be just simpler to print her presentation rather than setting up our high-tech PowerPoint.
High-tech 1970s.
Watch the cord.
Well, thank you so much for having me, and thank you for the invitation. Oh gosh, can I just pass it this way? Thank you. So my role with the Michigan Association of Counties is as a technical advisor on the settlement funds. It's a temporary kind of short-term position to really walk you all through the initial steps of the settlement process. So I'm here until September of 24, and will be a part of helping any county that's interested in any form of technical assistance, whether that's strategic planning, administrative support, you name it. If I can't do it, I will find the folks that can. But wanted to kind of provide an overview. You all have signed on to all 6 settlements at this point. We are anticipating 3, potentially 4 additional settlements over time, and I'll keep everybody updated as those progress. Those are going to take longer because they're in the bankruptcy process to create those abatement trusts. So those ones will look a little different. With the settlements that we have right now, just to outline the specific requirements for the counties. So one is going to be that 15% of those dollars do not have to be spent in alignment with anything specific. They're really up to you all to decide where those funds go. The other 85%, 70% of that has to be used for future opioid remediation, with 15% being allowed to be used for reimbursement for opioid remediation activities that have previously taken place. Most counties are advising using all 85% for future activities, but we know that some counties do have some reimbursement needs as well. With that, the definition of opioid remediation is provided on slide 4 here. So it's really up to the county legal folks to kind of make that decision on their interpretation of that definition. It does allow for a few different options, really. So use or misuse of opioids. Then you see the opioid use or related disorders. So this is not just opioid use disorders. We are seeing a change in the landscape to polysubstance use and other substances that are more fatal, like synthetic opioids, that I'm sure you all are aware of. And then co-occurring mental health and substance use disorders is another population that can be served by these dollars. And then other alleged effects. So a lot of kind of opportunity to look there, but the goal with these dollars is to get them as close to the people most profoundly impacted by the crisis as possible. So individuals that have substance use disorder, families that have been impacted, those folks I think are really where we want to get the dollars most closely related to. And then on the reporting standpoint, the county is only responsible for reporting the 15% that are not used on opioid remediation activities in the payment portal. So that goes directly to the national administrator, not to the state of Michigan, not to MAC, not to anyone here. Unless there's an issue, the national administrator will report that to the Michigan Attorney General's office as they're in charge of enforcement. I do anticipate a few things kind of coming. One, like I talked about, the future settlements. And then there is a slide on settlement tracking. So on the MAC website, the Opioid Resource Center, every month I update the list of where each of the settlements are, how much money is going to locals, as well as how much is going to the state, and some additional information. The link is provided later in the pages. But things that I anticipate coming. One is going to be more robust reporting requirements. This can either look like a voluntary survey through MAC that is on an annual basis. We have created a multitude of templates on the MAC website. So there's a spend plan template, there's an annual report template, there are templates for contracts with vendors or pass-through entities. So as we identify counties that need specific templates, we create that and put that on the website for use. The reason I bring that up is because those are all created with the thought in mind of future reporting. And so keeping in mind questions that may be asked in the future, some of those templates.
So are you saying that in the future, settlements we've already received they may come and say, oh, we want you to report on that? Or are you saying that future settlements that are coming may require reporting, or kind of both?
So both. The settlements that you have not signed on to will have different reporting requirements. That's what we anticipate. We don't know what those will look like. For the current settlements, we're seeing a lot of interest from lobbying organizations, state agencies, different groups that are really interested in getting this data in terms of where those dollars are going, what are the impact of these funds on our communities. And I think we'd all love to see what is the impact. So there are groups that will potentially be working on reporting. At MAC, we don't support unfunded mandates. So of course, if we are doing reporting, it will either be voluntary or we'll be seeking some financial assistance there for that. So not sure which direction, but I'm inserting myself in all of those conversations to make sure that your needs are taken care of in that process. Another opportunity for additional funds may come up. The Opioid Advisory Commission released their first annual report, and one of their recommendations was to create a planning committee or planning collaborative, and this group would basically develop ways that counties could engage with their stakeholders in the community, and if they checked those boxes, they would have a one-time payment of $25,000 from the state directly. That could be used just the same as all of the rest of your opioid settlement funds. So basically, if counties engage their local communities in the planning process, that would be the incentive of the $25,000. So we will wait to hear if those are accepted. We should know within the next couple weeks if they're going to move forward with those recommendations.
I assume that'll list who stakeholders, sort of a required stakeholders type of thing.
I'm not sure if there will be, specific individuals. I would imagine they may say someone from your local health department.
Yes, categories.
Yes.
Okay.
And we do have the toolkit that Matt created, a guide for local spending that does outline kind of a large group of those categories. So I would anticipate it would be ones off that list. Hopefully Matt will have a seat on that collaborative if it is created as well.
And would that group be advisory?
Correct. So this would be an advisory group to the Opioid Advisory Commission.
Okay, so would not make decisions, it would simply advise.
Correct. The same way that the Opioid Advisory Commission advises the legislature currently.
Okay.
But that's different than the local input from stakeholders. You're talking about some state level advisory groups, right?
Right, so that state level group would create the requirements for locals for that incentive.
Okay.
Just to be clear, 50% of the settlement amounts are sent directly to the local units. Of that 50%, we have to report on 15% of that, is that?
Correct, so that 50% is divided between counties, cities, and townships. Not based on population, but based on impact of the overdose crisis. So there were three kind of factors that the companies looked at there. But of all of the funds that you receive, only 15% has to be reported on, and it's the 15% you're not using for opioid-related purposes.
But there's another 15% of that 85% that is a possible reimbursement. Could you speak a little more about that? What would be reimbursement of what?
Yeah, so it would be related to Exhibit E, which are the allowable uses. So Exhibit E is 10 pages at least that outlines, prevention activities, treatment activities, harm reduction, public safety, all of those different activities. So if you had, say, a nurse in the jail providing services to individuals with opioid use disorder, and you'd been paying them for this last year, you could potentially use those funds to reimburse those charges. Or if you are contracting with a treatment provider for some sort of service, that can also be reimbursed. So it would have to align also with Exhibit E, which is the allowed uses.
And Exhibit E is on the MAC website?
It is, yeah, sorry, this was all like live links, but I can send this to you in an email so you have access to all the links provided.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anybody else have any questions?
That was absolutely as clear and straightforward as I would expect from Barry.
I understood.
Yeah, I understand.
Very good.
Yeah. I get that she doesn't have any control over the advisory committees and all that that's created. She's working for the Michigan Association of Counties and
I'm not
advising
killing the
it.
messenger.
No, I'm just saying, there might be multiple layers of bureaucracy, of course, around this, which they're gonna do. But if we can get $25,000 by creating input from stakeholders, that's the part we should probably be
Well,
looking at.
and maybe, since we have done some of this work with the CCAB, Community Corrections Advisory Board, those have a lot of stakeholders in them that might be part of it, because we are using some of our opioid money, the part that was first granted to us, to help fund pretrial services. And so we're also applying for a larger grant with Community Corrections. So,
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. It might cover a good chunk of what we need anyway.
as part of some of those stakeholders.
But Mark Durfee asked me to make sure that we said tonight that we have not funded pretrial services. That is very important to our CCAB grant, and I'll talk about that in a second. Nothing has been paid for yet. Nothing has been paid for. Okay? All right. Any other questions for Amy? Thank you for being here. You're welcome to stay for the rest of our meeting, which will be pretty quick, and you're also very welcome to go to your life. So thank you for being here. So the next item then is to approve the submission of the Community Corrections Grant and allow the CCAB to take necessary steps for submission. I would entertain a motion.
So moved.
Is there support?
Support.
Discussion.
So we are in the process of drafting this grant, and Commissioner Webster has been working with the grant writer, as well as the courts, as well as Mark Durfee, who is in charge of the pretrial services and the director for application purposes of the Community Corrections Grant. And this is an opportunity for us to receive money to enhance some of our programs that were already done. And I'll let Commissioner Webster go from there, because she met with them around noon today to discuss the grant.
So the grant is due May 1st, and this is a little bit of a, I think, backwards process, but again, we're working with Michigan Department of Corrections, so you can't expect things to be straightforward. The levels of bureaucracy are, they're there. So the grant is due May 1st, but we have to have commissioners' approval to submit the grant. But we don't have the grant to share with you because we don't have it completely done, but I can tell you the direction that we're going with it. So Community Corrections Advisory Board now has kind of two buckets for this grant. One bucket is pretrial services, and the other is sentenced felons. So pretrial services is what you do for defendants, people who've been charged with crimes from the time they're arrested until there is some sort of disposition or adjudication. So either they have a trial, or they plead guilty, and they become a felon, a sentenced felon, okay? So pretrial services is the stuff that we do to help the judges know this person that they're working with, is this a person that is safe to be out on bond? Are there some services that we could get in place to help this person start to be successful even before they're sentenced? Like, for instance, now, you can't get into drug court until you're sentenced, but maybe under pretrial services, if you have a drug issue, you could start getting drug treatment before you even plead guilty and get into drug court, and those kinds of things. So that's pretrial services. Mark Durfee is handling that portion of the grant. And then the other portion is what do we do with sentenced felons? We have a lot of some existing programs for sentenced felons, but we can enhance, and I have a list with me, some of the things that we're including in the grant. So for pretrial services, we are going to ask for funding for office personnel, and as Dr. Boggs mentioned, we have talked about using opioid money for that, but if we can get grant money from the state and save the opioid money to do something else with, of course we'd want to do that. So if the state will give us more money, they won't fund some things, so we're trying to get the most leverage that we can for all of the dollars that we could possibly get. So we could fund the pretrial services office. We're asking for funds for that, for pretrial assessments, for electronic monitoring. That's in the pretrial services bucket. In the sentenced felons bucket, we're working with our treatment courts, and they're needing things like life skills classes, GED testing fees. So we have a couple of organizations that help pay for GED testing fees, but they don't always have as many as we need. One of the requirements to graduate from drug court is you have to get a GED. To get out of flight court, you have to get a GED, and the volume at Michigan Works and at Baker is not always what the court needs, and so we're asking for funding for that. We're asking for some funding for some oral drug tests. So right now, one of the challenges in our treatment court is we have female case workers, case managers, supervisors, people who are supervising individuals, and you have to observe a drug test. A drug test has to be observed because people sneak things in and do all kinds of things. So to have a test that is less intrusive, where male or female, it doesn't matter, where one of our court staff has to go in a bathroom with a court participant to get a urine sample. There are other tests available that aren't covered by the drug court grant that are oral. And we would like for that it would be much more efficient for the court and obviously just less traumatic for everybody involved. So that's one. And then the other is looking at a way to help some of our treatment court participants with transportation and those kinds of things. There are lots of other things that you could do in either of those buckets, but this is our first application, and so we're trying to keep it a little more simple. Honestly, our pretrial services side is the heaviest side of this grant that we're doing. The other side is supplementing what we have until we kind of figure this out and get rolling forward a little more with the CCAB. But that's what we're looking to put into an application. But we're still working on pulling all the budget numbers together. The next 10 days are going to be pretty intense as we finalize all that. So then what MDOC wants is they want to vote that it's okay with you that we submit a grant, and then they want to vote the next month approving the grant. So next month you'll see the whole grant. And so it's kind of an issue of trust. You're approving that it's okay for us to submit a grant. We have to put that date that you've said, yes, we can submit this grant. And then you'll see the details of the grant, and next month you could say, we don't want to do this. I mean, we don't have to take the money even if we get approved, but I don't anticipate that that's what we're going to do. Anyway.
We'll be able to approve it before it gets submitted.
I imagine there'll be 3 steps. Not only are you approving to do this, you'll actually approve the grant next month, and then there's a resolution, I believe, when you accept the money.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So there's going to be 3
yeah.
times to vote on this. And most counties, a lot of counties in our area already have these programs, and we do not. we have not participated in it. And so we have more hoops to go through to get started.
MDOC provides this funding because they want to eliminate the number of people that get put in their prisons. You know, that there's a goal to do that. And we're looking particularly, they look particularly at a group that's called straddle cell. So straddle cell is, you could say your crime is 1 to 2 years. You could do that, you can do a year at the county jail, or you might get sentenced to 18 months to 2 years in prison. What incentives could we offer to keep people not in our jail or in the prison, but in a treatment court or something else? And so that's kind of the goal of it's not trying to, you know, it's about people who would be safe to be in the community.
Seems to me that pre-trial is really significant to this, because if you have a putative defendant who shows interest and will obligate himself before he's convicted and sentenced to taking part in a program, I think it increases our confidence, the court's confidence, that they will successfully take part in this program. So that preliminary part sounds really important.
It is, yeah, it is. And it's a big effort right now at the state level to try to help get people on track and have more equity in sentencing. You know, it's not helpful to taxpayers to have somebody sitting in jail if they could be out working and providing for their own family, if they're safe and if they're willing to participate in programs before their trial. So, yeah.
Is there matching funds for that? We have to match some of that?
No,
Oh,
no match.
Oh, okay.
Free money.
Oh,
No match.
oh.
The only investment that we have so far is what we've paid for Mark Durfee to work on this and for Ashley to work on this, the grant writer, and both of those have come from that opioid funding so far. So we have not expended county dollars working on it.
It's a good question. Yeah, it's very important to know what the skin in the game will be for us.
Because usually nothing's free.
Well, not anymore.
Yeah.
Everything's free now.
So, well, it's
Really?
actually free. Okay, so, if there are no further questions, I'd call for the vote. All in favor of moving this to tomorrow night, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, thank you. And then the next item is I would entertain a motion to approve the purchase of an industrial washing machine for the jail in an amount not to exceed $10,392. Looks like they have a couple of washing machines. Are they both not working? Is that what I
No,
understand?
only one has
Okay.
failed. They want to replace it. This is with commissary funds, so that's from the actual inmates and what they purchase from vending and different things like that. So it's not general fund expenditure. It's beyond the sheriff or my approval amount, so because they're quite expensive.
I'll move it.
I have a motion and support. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, and then we move on to item D. I would entertain a motion to approve the reappointment of Ruth George to the Shiawassee County Jury Board.
So moved.
Motion, support? I'll support it. We have a letter from Judge Stewart. I know Ruth George, she's actually one of my constituents. He talks about her being extremely diligent and conscientious, and that's how I know her to be as well. So this is a 6-year term on the jury board. Any questions or comments? All in favor of moving this to tomorrow night, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, and that completes our agenda. Last call to the public. Anybody else want to share questions? Hearing none, this meeting is adjourned.
justice for all. Thank you. All right, call to the public. Going once, going twice. Our first agenda item, I would entertain a motion to amend the parks plan to include the addition of a footbridge to the Chi-Town Park.
So moved.
Support.
All right, moved and supported. Do we have anything on that?
This is for them to add it to their master plan. It is not an expenditure of any money, but they have to have everything in their master plan to apply for grants.
It's, I was at the Parks Board, it's a very expensive bridge, although there was some talk about how they could make it cheaper. But it may require fairly significant match from us, so it isn't necessarily even going to happen or be suggested. It's just a matter of, you need it in there to ask for the money.
Okay.
So there are a lot of things talked about at the Parks Board about possibilities for what could be done with grant money and so on. So, but it has to be there to ask for it.
Okay, well, I guess that makes sense. I mean, it's certainly a beautiful park. What we've done the last few years is incredible, so. Anybody else have questions? All right, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed the same? That carries. I would entertain a motion to refill the WIC registered dietitian position at a grade 9.
So moved.
Second.
All right, Larry.
Lost another employee. She was a long-term employee with us. She's been with us since 2004. She did retire from the county and she took a position with RASD. So we're looking to backfill that, and we still have a vacant nurse position and a vacant social worker. So we're a little thin in our personal health division right now. But we're trying to get some interviews, trying to get some applicants, trying to move forward. It's a very tough labor market right now for employers. So we're working through it.
Well, this has been kind of ongoing, hasn't it? I mean,
Definitely.
for your
Can
department.
you take over those 3 positions?
No,
Oh.
because you have to have specific licensure.
Oh.
So like for all 3 of them, and that's
Oh.
makes it the hard part, because they're specific licensed social worker, nurse, and a dietitian.
Maybe we can send you to school, huh?
I could go back to school.
I think I'd be a good social worker.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I'm not accredited. So.
I'd be a lousy dietitian.
Yeah, so would I. All right, anybody else questions for Larry? No? All right, we'll keep up the good fight.
Thanks.
All those in favor of refilling this position signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed the same. That moves forward. Our last agenda item, I would entertain a motion to approve the chairman's selection of Brian Marks and Jerry Haber for the Solid Waste Committee and Jeannie Ladd for Health and Wellness.
So moved.
Support.
I had just one comment on this one. I'm really struggling with this appointment to Health and Wellness. We're trying to provide a little more oversight to that organization, as is our responsibility here on this board. And this is my 5th year serving on the Health and Wellness Board. And over those years, I've seen just a yes board. A board that approved last June $520,000 in bonuses, top down, not across the board, top down. So if you're at the top making $140,000, you got a whole month's extra pay. So you got 2 extra pays, a whole month. So it went from here all the way to here. And if any of this is sounding familiar, because it kind of does to me, we've all been through what happens when you do bonuses, not a peep. And that board voted with 1 no vote, which was me. They have just time and time again voted in things that I don't feel are good things for providing good mental health services to our community. So I'm gonna vote yes on this because I wanna see Brian Marks and Jerry Haber on the Solid Waste Committee. But I think we have to really give some thought to the oversight that is our responsibility on that board. Any questions? Gary?
Yeah, I've been on that board for, I don't know, maybe 10 years or so. And I know everybody votes yes on everything, but I don't think you can vote no on it and shut the place down. So,
Oh, no, but I
but
did.
I think, and this lad, she's been on there for 10 years. She come to me with tears in her eyes, and she's got health issues, and I really recommended that she should be on it, and she devotes her life to it, and I was even there before Lindsay, our chairman now, or
Yeah.
CEO, or whatever you want to say, and I supported her. And of course, everything doesn't always run the way you want it to, but with Greg, we already got 5-6 people on there that he wants on there, or you want on there, so there's about 12 that's supposed to be on there, so. And I've seen a lot of change over the period of time, so I guess her and I are the oldest ones on there, so.
Well, and it's not just this particular candidate for that board, it's just that I just would like this board to really think about, I think sometimes we just make these appointments, you know, without a lot of discussion moving forward, but it is our responsibility. They have about the same operating budget and employees as we do, so it's a big organization, it's a lot of money. Mental health is a critical need in this community, so I would just ask that this board be mindful of that.
And you can't, I don't think you could eliminate, I think our CEO, she got more than what she needed, but yet all the workers there, we have problems just like the county does. They have people that do the job, all these, they got like 250 employees or something like that, and they get them there and train them, and then they go someplace else and make more money, so all those people probably needed it, you know, and they start making less, so they got the turnover, the same problems that we have here, so I've seen it ever since I've been there.
And I don't understand that, Gary. I mean, they got free gym memberships, not just for themselves, but for a member of their family.
Well, they tried to keep it going. They got a big budget, so they got what, $27 million. So they got to keep their employees there. So.
Yes.
Sorry, Gary, I didn't mean to interrupt you. If you have more to say.
No, I got more to say, but I can keep it.
Okay. Two things. When I decided to reappoint Jeannie Ladd to this, in addition to what Gary said, Gary made a very passionate, defense of argument in favor of reappointing her, but even more so, there is a statutory requirement that people meet certain criteria, and we didn't actually have someone else. There was a possibility that someone else on the board could have met that same criteria, but there was a real question legally whether that person could have a dual role in this situation. So we were in a position at the last minute, rather than facing a possible legal problem with our board, that it seemed to tip the scales in favor of this. And like you, I have made it clear that I would like the board, that is this board, to have a little bit more oversight, mostly information gathering and so on. And I think we have some new personnel, new eyes to look at that. But I was going to ask, and maybe Brian, you can tell me this, to make Commissioner Garber more comfortable. Can we split this out into 2 items?
Oh, absolutely. You
Let's
can do
split this
whatever
out into Brian Marks and Jerry Haber for tomorrow, assuming this gets approved right now, and Jeannie Ladd as a separate item for tomorrow. Would that be?
I'm fine with that. I don't want to single out Jeannie Ladd because
Okay.
she's not. it's a bigger problem.
So I guess my question would be, would you prefer or not prefer to have this separated out?
No, I'm fine with it, how it is.
All right, then we're good.
I just, again, want this board to be aware of what I feel, you know, our responsibility is when appointing, especially to a board that, again, has the same employees and budget. I mean, it's a big,
I think it's important, and you and Gary have done a good job on the committees that you're on, reporting back to this board, that as we do further exploration into how our community mental health works, that we again report back to this board. There will be all three of us then, so there will be an extra set of eyes. So we'll just continue that and maybe put our heads together on questions that should be asked. And it's possible as we look into things more, we'll be very comfortable with what they're doing, or possibly we'll think that there should be some changes. And that is kind of the extent of our influence on that board, of course, and people need to know that we do not directly supervise them. We merely appoint, we approve who goes on the board. So that might influence our opinion in the future and our future appointments.
yeah, maybe
that's
board
my
members could get the gym membership.
That's all I have to say.
Yeah.
I take the chairman's point. I think it's a good one, and I will look at these as two separate things. As to the solid waste committee, soon to be, I guess, the materials handling committee, I know Jerry Haber. I don't know Ryan Marks personally, but the write-up on him was good. So those sound like good appointments, and I support those.
Oh, I absolutely agree.
Yeah, Jared, can I add something?
Yeah,
to that? So those two both fill specific roles on there as well, because Brian has experience in the actual solid waste, so he fills one of those areas. And then Jerry Haber fills the city position, which, because there are statutory positions that have to be filled on that board as well.
I do take the chairman's point about our relationships with these committees. When we appoint somebody, yeah, we have that control, or that means some regulation, but I do think we need to, if we're gonna have, it sounds like if we're gonna have maximum influence, it's gonna be in this preparatory role of choosing people. And again, I take it that this Gene Ladd sounds like a good appointment, but perhaps in the past, we didn't pay close enough attention to people who are being appointed. And,
well, what they did, Tom, is that they had their own nominating committee. They only, and then they would forward who they wanted on the board. So now we've looked at that process a little more closely, because it is our responsibility
it's
to
what we
appoint.
should, you're correct.
And I don't know that, you know, there is a problem, but again, it is a substantial budget and an employee base equal to ours, so a little different than some of the other boards. And with mental health and crisis, we owe that, I think, to our community to do the best job for those dollars.
And some of the expenditure you described doesn't make me a bit uncomfortable.
It did me, and that's why I was the no vote. I've learned that giving out $520,000 in bonuses doesn't always seem very popular. So I definitely want to go on record that I voted no on that.
Yeah, I was on that nominating board before, of course. I guess now they don't have it because Greg's taking it over, so. Greg,
Which we should.
and
It's our job.
I don't think that board has authority like we do here, so.
That board is only, their nominee is only advisory.
Yeah. So, it's a different type board, so if you guys are gonna go over there and think you're gonna shut everything down, you're not gonna do it, so.
Well, no, Gary, I don't want to shut things down. I
Well,
just want to
everybody's
stop
got different
things.
opinions, so.
Stop things like,
Sounds like it, so.
you know, we approved a very lucrative CEO contract for 5 years, taking that position to 186,000. I think that was maybe a bit high. I mean, if this board approved a contract for Dr. Boggs at 186,000, I think we would be on the front page of the Argus from now until kingdom
Yeah.
come.
I don't know if we could have separated that out or not, so. I don't know if we got the authority to do that, so,
Sure we do,
okay, we'll see.
but I'm just saying it would not go unnoticed.
Yeah. I hope we get 12 people that says no, and we'll see what happens, so. And the state wants to privatize it anyway, that's what they're worried about, they wanna privatize it, I don't know if you knew that, I don't know if the new governor's gonna do that or not, but they've been talking about it and they've been worried about it, they're gonna privatize it, so. That'll really be
Yeah, I
Something
don't
different.
know about that, we'll have to wait and see. More to come.
our new governor, maybe next year will be privatized, so.
I call the question.
All right, you ready to vote, Tom? All those in favor of moving this forward signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, the same.
No,
All right, that moves forward 2-1. Last call to the public. We are adjourned. Thank you.
if you call the question, you gotta vote on it, so.